We're going to discuss more deeply the social culture categories that we chose. First of all, we have the youth category focused on American youth because Emma is an American YouTuber influencer. And the second category that we have is mental health. It's not like she sits in front of the camera and talks about mental health, but it's something that you can like actually see it through the camera. She's just like this person that like breaks the mold of what a teenager should be like. There's many things that she shows in her videos that are completely transparent, like what a teenager goes through in a day, that she has mental breakdowns on camera. She just it's very honest about her feelings. In a fragment of a textbook called Youth and Cultural Practice by Mary Bush-Schultz, it's characterized by its attention to the agency of young people. It's concerned to document not just highly visible youth cultures, but the entirety of youth cultural practice. It's interested in how identities emerge in new cultural formations that creatively combine elements of global capitalism, transnationalism, and local culture. My analysis with youth culture is that we usually tend to set them as a whole. It's a really interesting thing to be analyzed because since there are so many different kinds of experiences, I think there is a lot that can come from one person and their cultural background, how they are raised, and the youth life. You kind of set all of your bases.
I feel like there's so many crucial decisions we make when we're young, like whether we move out, maybe we move to another city, like what we do in university, which determines the career for the rest of our life. A lot of things that happen when we're young kind of are like what people, I guess, would consider kind of like wet sand in a way. And as we continue throughout our youth, it kind of molds together and kind of shapes how we interpret the world as well. For example, even like Emma Chamberlain growing up in kind of the spotlight and how that can possibly play into the rest of her life and have such a, let's say, detrimental or also positive effect too on her as an individual going forward and developing not only through her youth, but also into her adulthood and into the rest of her life.
She's 20 years old. I think she's our age. Yeah, she's living a completely different kind of youth. And that's a really interesting thing to analyze. The second sociocultural category that we chose is mental health. You can actually sense how her mental health is doing just because of a video. The approach that sociology has in mental health is different. I'm gonna cite one of these books. It's called An Overview of Sociological Perspectives on the Definition, Causes, and Responses to Mental Health and Illness. So it says, the distinctive emphasis of sociological approaches is on how processes such as life events, social conditions, social roles, social structures, and cultural system of meaning affects states of mind. Many sociologists study how social conditions affects level of mental health. I think mental health, mental illness is something that's been popularized by teenagers, kind of romanticized online. There's a lot of, I think, taboo around the topic, but at the same time, as teenagers, our generation, Emma's generation, we're from the same generation, we have normalized the aspect of it's okay to be depressed, it's normal to have anxiety. When we watch a video online, we're just used to not expect to see that full-on emotion on screen. But ever since she started her YouTube channel, it's something that she's been transparent about. You can have this pattern. She doesn't want to get out of bed. She gets tired pretty quickly. All of these factors about her life, social aspects, her culture, how she's growing up, of course, it affects her mental health in a way that may not affect others, other teenagers that are not in the spotlight, and have to be criticized for everything they do, can be canceled at any moment.
I definitely agree with the idea that growing up in the spotlight, it's definitely harder in relation to mental health, and there's so much pressure placed on you to be a good influence, but to also be different, but to also be sexy or to also be pretty and all these types of things. And yeah, I think growing up in the spotlight, I think that's definitely something that can mess with a lot with someone's mental health and create a lot of anxiety and worries about whether that's safety, whether that's the paparazzi, what people are saying about you online. I also think that because Emma Chamberlain doesn't represent, like in her video, she's not like hanging out with tons of people. She, majority of the time, she kind of stays at home. She just is by herself, maybe like in bed, all these types of things that creates a lot of like speculation and rumors about her mental health. The idea that our definition of happiness in the society is being surrounded by people. Happiness is portrayed in different ways and means different things to different people depending on what your personality type is, and that's okay too. Mental health is a huge thing that Emma Chamberlain, I think, has gone through throughout her life, and the idea that she's able to portray, like, show, like, you know, some days I just want to lay in bed, some days I need to take care of herself, and also how her videos have changed over time.
It came to mind like the audiovisual like practices, one of the class topics. I want to relate this to Emma's videos. You get just a sense from Emma that although it's still a YouTube video and she is, you know, she's like cutting and editing and maybe she's not showing the whole thing, what's visible to us from here, it's a lot more deep than what's visible to us in different kind of videos. She inserts much more to her visible field that any other YouTuber. Like we literally see her through her videos doing whatever she does in a day, that we create this connection, and she's very honest with what she puts in her visible field. I think our like visuality, that it's kind of part of the process, what makes us see things in a certain way. We kind of like have a specific form version of Emma that we already know, that we're familiar with. Although it's not completely her life and she still has her privacy for some things, she's very honest about what she's putting in there. So I think that's what creates like this kind of attached to her.
She definitely kind of puts everything in her life out there in a way not only to entertain, but to honestly just be honest and represent herself authentically. Or even in her videos, she's not always showing like, oh, this is the shoot I'm at, this is my photo shoot I had to do for this magazine, this is me hanging out with a bunch of people. She lives in the moment, but is also able to show us parts of her day that maybe other people don't see that are in her everyday life. And I think that really establishes like the connection between like the viewer and her as the performer, and showing us almost ourselves. I feel like it's kind of like a reflection of like even just things we go through on a daily basis that maybe we don't show other people because of stigma around that, but she's so honest about it that it makes it okay for others to be honest about it as well.